Yes, hello and welcome to this month's, sorry, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, okay. So welcome to this month's Teach Educational Rounds. The title of this session is called Boiling the Ocean, Working with Clients with Multiple Behavior Change Goals. And presenting this webinar is Stephanie Kersta. So if you want to say hi.
Hi.
Okay, so, sorry, I'm going to just hold this right here. Is that better?
That's perfect. Don't move. Yeah, don't move. It's perfect.
Okay. So I'll speak with a microphone today. So just going to go over some housekeeping slides like usual before we begin. If you are interested in obtaining a letter of completion for this Teach Educational Rounds, please make sure that you have first registered for the webinar and completed the pre-learning assessment. Make sure that right now you are signed in to view the webinar using your first and last name, because that's how I'll be able to track you. So if you sign in as guest, I won't be able to know if you've actually attended or not. And then finally, after the webinar, I'll be sending out a link to complete an evaluation and post-learning assessment, which you will have 1 week to complete. Now remember that these webinars are being live tweeted on Twitter. So if you do have a Twitter account, you can follow the CAMH Nicotine Dependence Service at PSQuitSmoking, and you can post your own comments using the hashtag TeachWebinar. So I'm just going to go over our faculty presenter's bio. So Stephanie Kersta does hold a Bachelor of Science in Psychology as well as a Master of Science in Psychology, as well as a number of different certifications in addictions and mental health counseling. And if you want to read the rest of her bio, I will send out these slides later today. These are her disclosures, as well as our disclosures. The TEACH curriculum and slides were developed and compiled with funding from the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care, and content of slides are primarily based on evidence-based guidelines from the following sources. These materials, as well as the verbal presentation and discussions, set out only general principles and approaches to treatment, and they do not replace the need for individualized clinical assessment and treatment plans. So again, before we begin, I'm just going to go over a few polling questions just to gauge who's joined us today. So in a second, using your computer, can you just indicate if you work for one of the following? Okay. So it looks like majority today are from public health units as well as family health teams. Great. And again, if you can indicate what your current discipline is, you may need to scroll down just to see all of the options. And if it's not there, you can definitely write it in the chat for us. So I'm seeing a lot of registered nurses. Good. Some pharmacists, some health promoters and educators, recreation therapists, registered kinesiologists. Cool. Okay. And then finally, if you can indicate what region your organization serves. And then again, if it's not there, you can definitely type it in for us. And it looks like a lot of you guys are from the eastern area, and the GTA, but a lot of you are also working outside of the province. See, Manitoba, that's good. Okay, great. So lots of different people joining us today. That's awesome. Okay, so with that, I will not take up any of your time. Stephanie, if you want to get started.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie, and so my bio is there, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of just a little bit of an overview of some of the work that I do, because I'll be drawing on a lot of the work that I'm doing, or a lot of work that I have done, and I currently do kind of as I go through this. So I'm a registered psychotherapist, and I currently work in private practice in Richmond Hill. I also teach at Durham College and at McMaster University in their addictions and mental health program. So at Durham College, it's a postgraduate program, and at McMaster, it's a certificate program as well. I've run smoking cessation programs at many different locations. I've had the ability to kind of develop different programs, develop different groups and consulting roles, trial them, pilot them, test them, which has been great. I've had lots of opportunities with CAMH as well. I run the core course, the current CDM course that's working right now, the mental health and addiction course, and I also am a trainer for the Canadian Training Institute, and I also run mental health first aid, assist, and safe talk. So lots of little things. I've always had a particular interest in behavior modification or behavior change in many different iterations. So I've worked closely with kind of with addiction, as addiction counseling, with mental health. A lot of my private practice could be behavioral modification for sleep. I've run pilot projects with the Ministry of Health for diabetes prevention and ways to prevent the onset of diabetes with individuals who are pre-diabetic. Kind of on and on and on. So it's something that I'm really, really passionate and I really love to talk about. And I'm hoping today is going to be a little bit more kind of interactive. So we have this chat, so I'm going to be kind of overseeing the chat and hoping that we can kind of have some good conversations. So it's really interesting because so often when I teach, so often when I run different programs, there's always what comes up is clients who might be pre-contemplative or clients who don't want to change and people who are kind of very or who are unmotivated to change. And it's interesting because I've seen this small subset, and that's something that I've really struggled with before kind of in my private practice and kind of my different clinical practice is the people who want to change everything. And that's why I called it boiling the ocean. There's, they've made the decision to change. They had some motivating factor that changed for them, but now everything in their life wants to change. And what's interesting about that is it can become very difficult for us as clinicians who are supporting them to kind of understand what we should prioritize. And whenever there's any type of behavior change, there's always there's always the risk that we run that, people are going to fail or they're going to have setbacks. And so when someone's trying to change one thing, that's difficult enough to manage. But when people are trying to change 5, 6, 8 different things, that's a lot more difficult to manage. So we'll talk about some goal setting theory and just kind of best practices around goals, and then we're just going to have some conversation back and forth. So the case example that I kind of came up with, kind of made up, kind of pulled from a few different cases, is Sandra's a 42-year-old female, and she was referred for smoking cessation because she found out that she has early stage COPD. So she comes into your office and she's really excited to quit smoking. She's currently smoking but a pack a day. She does not want to hear about taper plans whatsoever. She plans to quit cold turkey today, and then in addition, she also wants to lose 40 pounds, start a daily exercise habit, stop eating fast food, start sleeping more often, meditate, volunteering, kind of everything. And she has a very short time frame in which she wants to meet her goals. She wants to meet by the end of the month. And so, you see her in 2 weeks and she's quite defeated. She didn't meet any of her goals. And the problem is that the stress of failing is making her smoke more. She just wants to quit everything now. She just wants to quit trying to quit smoking. So I'm wondering if anyone has found similar cases or other cases like that we can kind of talk about throughout the webinar today. So feel free to chat or chime in if there's anything that's come up for you, and we'll chat about it as a group. I'm seeing, oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, very similar situations often. So that's great. We'll have a good conversation today. So like I said before, kind of when most of our clients and kind of a lot of what we talk about clinically and through academics is really trying to challenge that ambivalence about smoking cessation. There's these clients who we have, though, that we don't talk about that often, who are really highly motivated to change multiple behaviors at the same time. Marilyn said she calls this magical thinking, which is, yes, it's true, it's very magical. And it's really great that our clients are so motivated and that they want to kind of manage multiple significant, or they want to change different lifestyle changes, but kind of the management of that can really set up clients for major challenges and frustrations. And there is that risk that they abandon all health goals, because what we know through research is that when someone makes one small change but they're successful at it, their self-efficacy goes up, their belief that they can change goes up, the belief in themselves, which then sets them up kind of for, and not an easier way, but it sets them up for success for each subsequent change. When we have clients who want to change everything all at one time, so as Marilyn said, this magical thinking that their life is going to change kind of within 2 weeks, that self-efficacy can really go down, and it makes any type of behavior change, no matter how big or small it is, quite difficult. And so current research is showing that the highest success rates are achieved when clients prioritize one change at a time, and then when following well-planned out goals. So when the goals are very well planned out. So we're going to talk a lot about goal setting, but we'll also talk about, because what I've overcome, or what I've seen and encountered in many different practices, is that I know this, right? Like, I know that the success rates are highest when clients prioritize one goal, and that we're set kind of, I want to spend time really working through goal setting theory and planning out these goals, but my clients don't really believe in that. And my clients feel like they're going to be kind of the one-off that doesn't need to plan it, that's going to be able to change everything all at once. And so how do we have that conversation, and how do we kind of really highlight this to our clients, but in a really respectful way, so clients are feeling that they are playing an active role in their treatment. So Locke and Latham are kind of like the fathers of goal setting theory. And goal setting theory is a really well-known theory that kind of, in addition to SMART goals, what we'll talk about in a bit, it really talks about goals that kind of sweet spot to create goals that increase success. And so they're clarity, challenge, commitment, feedback, and task complexity. So the thought is that the goals that we set, when we set goals, kind of a big part of our success in any type of behavior change is the goals that we set for themselves. So clarity is how clear we write those goals out. And it kind of, I find clarity is very similar to kind of that SMART goal analogy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But, you know, we've really clearly written out what our plans are, what our goals are, and they're well thought out. The other thing is challenge. So challenge, I'm going to put a pin in it, because I'm going to show you a graph in the slides in a little bit, but there really is, there's this sweet spot, really, for kind of how challenging a goal could be. And if you think about an upside down U, it's kind of like in the middle. So it's really interesting, because if goals are too easy to meet, it does nothing for self-efficacy or the belief in ourselves. And if goals are too difficult, then again, it's really going to frustrate someone. So our challenge as clinicians is to really work with our clients and draw from our clients what that sweet spot would be for them. And I know a lot of people like to start really, really small, but oftentimes when we hit that sweet spot, and it takes trial and error, and we can do it kind of week over week, once you've hit that, you'll see kind of the client's belief in themselves. You'll see their motivation. You'll see their self-efficacy go up quite significantly. Clients' commitment to goal as well. And what's interesting about that is, so oftentimes commitment will come from that strengths-based perspective, or that solution-focused perspective. So if clients are taking an active role in their goals and getting the client on board to come up with the goal themselves, again, self-efficacy is going to go through the roof, and the client's buy-in for the goal, again, is just they're more committed to the goal, success will increase. Feedback is the other thing that we want to talk about. So feedback is really our goal. So our kind of follow-ups with our clients and how we work with our clients kind of week over week, or whatever your follow-up schedule looks like, we want to make sure that the feedback that we're giving also really supports the goals as well. So when we provide feedback to our clients, we want to make sure that when we're giving feedback, it's specific to the goal. And I know that in many other teach trainings, I remember this from the core course way back when I took it. I always remember, and most recently Megan, I always remember Megan saying, you want to kind of provide feedback or compliment the behavior, but not always kind of the person themselves. So you're not just lavishing praise. You want very specific feedback, and you want that feedback that's very specific to the goals. Identify the work that the person's put into those goals, the work that they put into kind of achieving their goals. Really draw it back to those goals, because again, that's going to be really motivating for the client rather than rah, rah, you're doing great. That's lovely, and I fight myself all the time, like when clients come in and they've lost 3 pounds, or they've, not eaten out, or they've cut back on 5 cigarettes. I want to jump up and down and be like, yeah. But the risk that we run when we just get so super excited about our clients, about just kind of overall the change itself, is that oftentimes our clients, we know relapse is a possibility with any type of behavior change. We know slips are going to happen, and we don't want our clients to be scared to come back to us once they've had those slips. We don't want them to feel that we're going to be disappointed in them. And then task complexity. So again, task complexity kind of goes in line with the challenge, but it's how much is required to complete the task. And the thought is that generally a little bit easier the better. So if clients decide that they want to start an exercise routine, walking is often a really great goal. Why walking can be a really good goal is because it's generally cheaper free if you have a pair of walking shoes, and it can be done anywhere, and it doesn't take a lot of forethought or planning, rather than clients who oftentimes, when I've had this, they'll come in with these super complicated workout plans that require bands and weights and all this stuff, and they have to buy everything, and again, it's just making the task a lot more complicated. Same thing with some kind of diet plans. Oftentimes we'll have clients who will come in and it requires these 20 different Tupperwares to meal plan for hours at a time. And again, that complexity already sets someone up for a little bit more of a difficult time. So we want to try and ensure that, the challenge of the goal is in that sweet spot, but what it takes to achieve that goal is a little bit less complex. We don't want the prep to actually start to do the behavior change to be so difficult in and of itself. I'm going to keep going on, but are there any questions or comments or thoughts on this slide so far? Okay. A couple of people are typing, so I'll just give it a minute. Adriana likes the fact that we want to keep things simple. I think it's a human nature, though. I even look back at myself when I talk about this stuff, and we always find that, I don't know, I always find that I tend to overcomplicate things too. So I find generally as a nature, especially in addiction to mental health field, we tend to kind of overcomplicate things quite often. Michelle asked me, what are the thoughts on clients being successful at quitting multiple addictions at once? Research has shown that that's actually quite effective. So research has shown that it's kind of split down the middle, but there has been some current stuff come out that highlights that clients are, when they quit multiple addictions, it is shown to be helpful. So it's, when you kind of lump it into one general addiction, that has shown to be successful, but when there's multiple different massive lifestyle changes. Generally, when you're quitting one addiction at a time, like if you're quitting, like I had lots of clients, I worked in the methadone program, so who were quitting opiates, cocaine, and smoking at the same time. And a lot of the behaviors that you're doing to ensure that change kind of the similar for all the same. But when you're talking about clients who are quitting smoking, who are starting to exercise, who are starting to eat better, who are starting to meditate or volunteer, that takes a ton of extra planning. So it has been shown to be effective with many people. Awesome. Cool. Michelle just wanted to have the clarification regarding grouping tobacco addiction with the others. Yeah, lots of research has shown that tobacco addiction with other types of substances is effective. And we ran, when I was at the methadone clinic, we would run tobacco cessation courses with clients who were in active use and kind of doing everything all at the same time. So go for it, because it's always really good. So talking a little bit about SMART goals. So I'm sure most of you have heard about SMART goals, but I'll just talk about it a little bit. Really, behavior change goals that have been shown to be the best are considered SMART, and SMART's an acronym. And really the thought is when goals are clear and achievable, they're not only easier to achieve, but they're easier to identify when they've been met. And that's the big thing with SMART goals. Like, it's really great to have these well drawn out plans, and there is the thought that if you don't write it down, it's just an idea, but when you write something down, it starts to become a plan. So I do like to engage clients in writing goals down for themselves because, again, it's that commitment to themselves. But really, the benefit of SMART goals is being able to identify with clients when those goals have been met. Because as soon as we can highlight that success, as soon as we can highlight that people are on the right track, boom, we can get that self-efficacy going up. We can really start to draw out kind of those changes that our clients have been made. And the goal with being able to kind of increase that motivation as people continue to change is really fostering that self-efficacy, really fostering that belief that things are changing. So something I'll do, and it's a solution-focused technique, but oftentimes when we are setting goals with our clients and when we are doing some SMART goals planning, oftentimes I'll ask clients, what are the first couple things that you'll start to notice have changed when you're starting to make these changes? So let's say, I don't know, someone wants to start walking for like 20 minutes a day or something, right? What are the first couple things that they're going to start to notice? When's that kind of first part that they're going to start to see that they're making that change? So oftentimes clients will say, when I go downstairs and I immediately put my running shoes on to go outside, I don't do anything else, or I don't like sit down and look at my phone for 2 hours, or, when I go to my patch first before going to my pack of cigarettes. So what are those little tiny little snippets, those little tiny glimmers that we're going to see that things are moving in the right direction? Because again, that's going to be that stuff that we're going to pull out. That's the stuff that we're going to affirm to our clients. That's going to be helpful so we can see how far clients are coming, especially when clients are having a hard time, when they're not meeting their goals according to the deadline that they've come up in their mind. What are things that we can do? What are those things that we can pull out and be like, well, look, you're doing this, this, and this, right? Being able to really identify that, because that's going to make self-efficacy go through the roof. So SMART goals stand for, we want goals to be quite specific, we want them to be measurable, we want them to be attainable or achievable, realistic, and timely. So if anyone wants to kind of highlight SMART goals that their clients have come up with, that would be helpful. If a couple of you want to kind of highlight some of those so we can see some real life examples, that would be helpful. But really with SMART goals, we want to make sure that we can measure them, that again, it really goes in line with Walk and Lab them, that they're achievable, easily achievable, that they're realistic, and that we have a time frame for things. Marilyn had a question. Could you comment on any challenges a client might experience when attempting to stop smoking cigarettes while continuing to smoke cannabis products? Yeah, so what are some of the challenges that maybe you've come up with? Because I actually don't see a lot of clients who are having that. It's really interesting, because I thought for sure I see a lot of young student or kind of younger clientele. One of the big things that I see that I have seen in the past is clients who are smoking cigarettes and they're continuing to smoke cannabis, and so oftentimes they'll mix the cannabis with tobacco, and so that's difficult, or they'll chase their cannabis, like if they're smoking, they'll chase their cannabis with a cigarette, and so they struggle with that. Something that we found really helpful for that is to try and switch to clean products, like not mixing the tobacco in with the cannabis, but also the Nicorette inhaler. If you guys are part of STOP, I find clients find that really helpful, especially if they smoke cannabis socially and everyone else is having a cigarette. Being able to use the inhaler is really helpful for people. But feel free to kind of, if you want to specify a little bit more, I'm happy to talk more about that. What are your thoughts on clients who quit smoking but develop unhealthy eating habits, i.e. excessive sugar, carbs? Oh man, the chips. I always find clients when they quit smoking, they want chips. So again, is that a goal for clients? So that's the first thing. So I've had many clients who have quit smoking, but they have no interest in losing weight or changing their eating habits. So again, if that's not something that the client's bought into, if that's not something that the client is really focused on, then I'm not going to really start harping on that. I'm not really going to start to kind of highlight that. We can do that afterwards. But again, if the client's coming to see me with their goal, my big rule for myself is, I might have goals for my client, but those aren't the goals. The client's goals are their goals. So if the client hasn't identified that, then I'm not going to touch it. If it is, oftentimes I'll have clients and I'll talk about some of the techniques, kind of that quick fire. I really like quick fire, lists or brainstorm. So oftentimes if I have clients who have chips, because I don't know, I find chips and smoking. Some of the clients who have had those, who tend to really eat a lot more chips when they're quitting smoking, I'll have them rapid fire some things that they think would work for them. So do they think popcorn? Do they think, I've had lots of clients do needlepoint because it keeps their hands busy, watercolors, coloring books, carrot sticks, the typical stuff. But I have them come up with what they think would work for them in lieu of having the chips as well, or whatever their snack of choice is. I hope that helps. Let me know if it doesn't. I'm going to try and answer some of these questions, and then I'll continue on. Catherine said she sees often that the small steps individuals take motivate them to continue with behavior change goals. Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's amazing. You'll see such a difference when they start to identify those small steps, and that's why I really like to kind of really highlight those small steps for clients. Dorina came on with an amazing SMART goal. I will reduce my smoking by 5 cigarettes a day by getting up from the table and going for a walk after supper instead of going for a smoke. Fabulous. A couple other things you could do for that one is identify kind of when they want to reduce that by. So by the end of the month, by the end of the week, whatever it is. Kelly Cronin wrote, when oncology patients are working towards quitting smoking and they start off by avoiding smoking 2 hours before and 2 hours after radiation treatments, this increases their self-efficacy. Fabulous, fabulous. Any products similar to the Mr. Spray that don't contain alcohol? Not that I know of, but if any of the pharmacists want to kind of chime in on that, the inhaler seems to be the go-to for most of my clients, the inhaler patch combo, but I know that the spray has alcohol in it, unfortunately, and I don't know of anything that's like the spray that's like that. And Claire wrote, what would you think about suggesting to those who want to quit smoking tobacco and still want to use cannabis to consider change ingestion? Fabulous. It's such a good suggestion. Love that. Okay, so working on SMART goals. I've already kind of talked a little bit about this, but clients can really find making SMART goals tedious, and oftentimes I find clients will highlight difficult or unrealistic goals. So many, many times I've had clients in my office who are like, this is dumb, I don't want to do this, why don't we talk about how I can change my behavior, why are we talking about this, I want to do bigger, bigger, bigger. And so oftentimes it's kind of getting the clients on board and understanding that, and educating kind of how this really will set them up for success. We also want to really encourage clients to hit that sweet spot of goal setting. So those goals that are difficult enough but not too difficult to achieve. And so I have the chart here. So this is Lock and Latham, and this is goal setting theory. So really what we've seen, if a goal is too soon, so if the time frame is too soon, or if it's unrealistic, then performance and kind of motivation it kind of wanes a little bit. Same thing with if the goal is too far off. So if someone's decided that they want to lose 5 pounds by the end of the year, sometimes they'll lose a little bit of motivation for that. Or if it's a really abstract goal, so I want to quit smoking. Well, when do you want to quit smoking? How are you going to quit smoking? Or I want to start exercising. Well, what kind of exercise are you going to do? What kind of, how often are you going to exercise? What time of day are you going to exercise? So again, unrealistic, abstract, too far, too soon. That's when we start to see that kind of motivation and performance wax and wane. Where we see it kind of in the middle is when it's challenging enough and that we have a time frame that the clients abide by. Something I find really helpful just with quitting smoking or with cessation is, especially with tapers, because I find tapers, they take a while for clients to taper down. And oftentimes if they just want to, they just say, oh, okay, I'm going to taper down, or, I'll smoke 2 less cigarettes by the next time I see you. Again, that can be a little bit difficult. So we make it a little bit challenging, but not too challenging. So I'll just print off like calendars, like the word calendars, and I have them in my office. And when clients have, like when they have a taper plan, they're like, okay, I want it between now and next month. Okay, so how are we going to taper down between now and next month? And I'll have them kind of each day kind of decide, are they going to go down by 2 a day? And we actually write it on the calendar and put that on their fridge, and then they cross it off if they met it. And then if they come back and, you know, they have gone down to like 7 cigarettes a day, and they're stuck there, then we create a new taper plan. But again, being able to see it, being able to write it down, and so often I'll ask my clients, especially when they're kind of going too challenging, I'll say to them, do you think that this is really doable? Like, talk me through your day. Do you think that this is absolutely doable? And then if they say, no, it might be a little bit too challenging, okay, let's just try it by 1. And I always say to people with any type of behavior change, I'll say, how old are you? And they'll say, like, I don't know, 30. And I'll say, okay, so you've been doing this behavior for how many years? And then they'll have to tell me, like, 15 years. Okay, if it takes another month to meet your goal, you're already doing all these behaviors that are impacting your health in a positive way. Take the time to spend a little bit more time, you know, doing it right, rather than, you know, challenging yourself too much so you hate the next month. And I find clients really respond well to that when they see that, okay, I've been doing this behavior for 15 years, an extra 30 days isn't really going to make that much of a difference. But I find it really highlighting to them that all the small steps that you're already taking, if it's a taper, if it's taking little walks, if it's eating more vegetables, any of those little things that people are doing, that's already benefiting your health. So any thoughts or questions on both of these areas? I see some people typing, so I'm just going to hang tight for 1 sec.
Stephanie?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just calling from the phone line. I can't see the presentation right now. My name's Jennifer.
Okay.
I just am wondering if you see any difference whether the person is intrinsically versus extrinsically motivated, and then whether the source of the reason for the change makes any difference too, right?
Yeah.
What your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's a fabulous question. I'm actually going to talk about that in like 2 seconds.
Perfect.
So I'll hang tight on that, but we'll go back to that because that's actually something I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
Thank you. So I just have a couple people typing, so I'm just going to hang tight for 1 sec. Okay. I'll chat a little bit about intrinsic and extrinsic goals while we're waiting, because I'm just a little bit mindful of the time and I want to leave enough time for questions at the end. So the concept of intrinsic and extrinsic, so thank you, Jennifer, for bringing that up as well. Highlighting kind of if those clients are clients intrinsically motivated, so internally motivated, or if they're extrinsically motivated, so external motivating factors, is also really helpful in the creation of SMART goals. Sometimes clients will have a mix of both. I find oftentimes my clients will have a mix of both. And the research is really mixed on intrinsic versus extrinsic. So what the research has shown us in kind of motivation is that it by and large, if someone's internally motivated, so if they have an internally motivated factor that's motivating them to kind of change their behavior, then those intrinsic motivations tend to have a slight advantage over extrinsic. But that doesn't mean that extrinsic is just garbage. Like, you can have someone start to change their behavior and they're externally motivated, and then they'll move internally motivated. So I give a lot of talks on motivation kind of in the workplace, and oftentimes I'll tell clients, like I always use the example of exercise. So for many people, myself included, generally there's external motivating factors for exercise, right? Like oftentimes there's lots of reasons, but exercise can be an externally motivating factor. Your doctor could have told you to exercise. Your genes could have told you to exercise more. There's lots of different external motivating factors. But oftentimes, and I see this quite often with like behavior, like positive lifestyle change, is that how you start to feel after once you've started to exercise or eat healthier or sleep more or meditate, then that feeling that you get then becomes that internally motivating factor. So things can start off an external factor, like maybe your doctor told you to start exercising more, but then you start to feel really good from it, maybe your genes look really better or whatever it is, and then those things become a little bit more of an internal motivation, and then that can carry the behavior goal throughout the rest of the kind of the change process. So what's shown to be kind of with research, what's shown to be a little bit more effective than internal versus external motivation is the client coming up with the goal themselves. So if a client has a goal to change their behavior, even if it's an external goal, when they actually craft the goal themselves, and kind of what that goal would look like, that the buy-in for that tends to show a little bit more of an advantage. So, you know, I do like to have clients come up with internal factors because it has shown to be effective. But if someone comes up with 0 internal factors, but they're still willing to give it a shot, then we give it a shot. But kind of in those follow-ups, what I'm really highlighting is how are you feeling? Kind of what are the differences in kind of how you're feeling? What are the changes since you've made this behavior are you seeing in yourself? And oftentimes we'll start to find those internal factors. And again, it's affirming that, it's validating that, and it's driving that point home. Jennifer, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Awesome, cool. So just wondering from you guys if there's examples of intrinsic goals or extrinsic goals that you've identified with clients, and kind of what have you seen? Have you been able to kind of have someone who started externally and then start to move a little bit more internally? Love to see kind of your thoughts on that. So all that time I was waiting to see, I actually didn't scroll down from my screen, so I'm seeing lots of people talking now. Okay. So Sarah wrote something about the alcohol in the mist. Catherine uses calendars as well, and she finds that the strategy works well. And then do I have calendar templates you can send out? Totally, like if you want me to send one out, I can send out the one that I use, totally. But yeah, Joanne said there's lots of printable calendars online. Literally how I found it was I Googled calendar January 2018 or whatever month it is, and then I'll click Google Images and I'll print them out. But I'm happy to send out the ones that I use as well. Lots of talk on the quick mist if you're interested in the quick mist and alcohol. Love this too. So Cheryl also talked about, she discussed planning for barriers. It's a big, big part of goal setting as well. We want to see kind of what those potential barriers could be. So when we're having the conversation about goal setting with our clients, we really want to highlight to our clients, so what are the potential barriers, right? If it's -30 in an ice storm, I did some work in Aurelia. That's a big, big deal. What could you do in the meantime? I find, right, like what's really easy now is if clients have access to a computer or a smartphone, and I know some clients like don't, but a lot of clients will have access to a computer of some sort. I find that like YouTube is amazing for like little workouts that clients have. So I have a lot of clients who want to reduce their stress and they want to start doing yoga, but they just don't have the financial means to go to a yoga class or they're nervous. I find Yoga by Adrienne is a really good YouTube channel because she has all different types of like levels, and it's completely free. What I also like for her is that she has some specific yoga for different mental health, so yoga for anxiety, yoga for depression, and they're well done. I've seen some other ones that aren't great, but I find that they're really well done. So Yoga for Adrienne is a really good one if people want to start doing a little bit more exercise, and especially if it's a little bit more gentle. She also has some chair yoga too for people who aren't mobile. And meditation too, there's a lot of really cool meditation apps. I know Calm is pushed out quite often. People talk about the Calm app for meditation, but I find that they're really prioritizing the paid more and more. So Insight Timer is another really good one, and they have like it's a whole calendar, and I find it's really free. So I find I like that one a little bit better now because I find that people can tire out of calm pretty soon. So I'm really liking the insight timer. Just trying to see if there's anything else I want to highlight. So Andrea wrote, I appreciate the point that it is their goal. Do you have a reference for this? I think that relevance is key. How do you link the relevance within the goal statement, or do you? I'm not sure I'm understanding that question properly. Andrea, can you just clarify that a little bit more? I just don't want to answer the wrong question. Like, do you want to, like a academic reference? I can totally send you a journal article. And then how relevant is the goal to them? So how do I link the relevant within the goal statement? Totally, yeah. So that actually goes to the client buying into the goal, right? If they say that they want to exercise more and I say, how are you going to exercise? And they're like, I don't know, I'll go to the gym. Well, do you have a gym membership? Like, are you planning to get a gym membership? Or if they've been told by someone that they have to make a change and they have no interest in it, then we talk about, like, we'll do a decisional balance with them to see something within that goal that might be relevant to them, that might be something that they would buy into. I hope that answers your question. If not, I'm hoping you're typing. Loving some of these intrinsics. So quitting smoking because of cancer treatment, noticing an improvement in energy and breathing, quitting smoking after being diagnosed with COPD, but becoming motivated by the money saved. I love that. Eliminating self-harm, which began with staff and family encouraging her to do so, and then became an intrinsic goal, and she successfully quit self-harming, smoking, and joined a DVD program. Wow, that's amazing. Quitting smoking because of pregnancy, finding they have more energy when pregnant than ever. Love that. Andrea, yes, I'll pull an academic reference and I'll send it out with the materials. And then relevance, do you add their motivation? I will reduce my smoking 1 cigarette per day until I reach 0 by next month because, yeah, totally. We can. I think it's really helpful. And again, it's always kind of deciding with clients what you think would work best for the client. So if someone is really motivated for something, then totally I have them write it down. I'm like the biggest fan of sticky notes, so you'll see kind of the strategies. Talk a little bit about the strategies. I love sticky notes. I love when people put sticky notes everywhere. I think I like have a stock in Dollarama from the sticky notes that I purchased for my office. And sometimes we'll have clients, like the first place what they look at, like the first thing that they look at, like if it's the bathroom mirror, and then put their goal in their bathroom mirror, especially if they live alone or if they, you know, have a goal, if they want to eat healthier, put it on the fridge or inside the fridge, kind of what their reason is. I find that could be really helpful. So kind of some of the strategies that I use, and I find I have a lot of clients who will start to go down this route. Like we'll start to talk about kind of, okay, so what is the SMART goal? Like tell me like your goal, let's talk about SMART goal. And then we're starting to talk about their SMART goal, and then they're like, but then I want to change this, and then I want to change this, and I want to change this. And I feel like it's almost like this like big, I'm hoping that you can see my video, it's like this convoluted kind of route that we're going into, and it feels like there's no direction to the session. So oftentimes what I'll do in that situation is I just have some construction paper and markers, and I'll pull it out and I'll just say to the client, okay, let's write down every single goal you have. Like just write down, like spend some time writing it down. And I'll have them write it all down, and then we'll go through it and say, okay, I need you to prioritize one by one. What are we going to talk about today? What's the thing that's impacting your life the most? Doesn't mean that we're not going to cover them all, but what are we going to prioritize right now? Where would you see the biggest bang for your buck? And oftentimes clients will then start to do that. And then I keep that construction paper in their file or in my office. And then I'll oftentimes, when we'll go through it, right? But what I do is, okay, they come up with the first thing. Okay, what are some things that we can do to meet that? Let's make a SMART goal for that. And then we go through that one by one. But sometimes I find when clients have the act, like they have all these ideas in their head, and then when they actually write everything out, and then they talk about everything it takes to meet all those goals, then they're a little bit more bought in. And they're like, okay, let's boil the lake instead of the ocean to start with. Because they know that it's not off the table, but they actually see. I find the visualization of everything, again, is really helpful. Sticky notes I talked about a little bit. So again, sticky notes are really, really helpful. I'll sometimes do it with sticky notes instead of construction paper, so they can, I find that's a really good one, especially if you don't have a lot of room. I have people write on sticky notes all the things that they want to change and everything that they have to do to do it. And then, and someone who's like likes environment, I cringe every time I waste paper, but being able to stick it up all on the wall and then see this wall of everything that they want to change, and then being able to work through it. I find, again, the visualization is really powerful for people. Rapid fire is essentially that, just without paper. So being able to kind of, I'll usually just chart it myself, but have clients kind of tell me everything that they want to change, kind of everything that they're going to go through. It's just a good way to brainstorm and get everything out. But I just say to them, okay, quick, just think about yourself. What are all the things that you have to do to meet this change? And I'll have them rapidly say everything. So it's just a quick brainstorm. Pro-con list, so like a decisional balance, is really good for changing behaviors. I've even done like pro-con lists or like a decisional balance with clients about, you know, what would be the difference if they changed all their goals versus changing one at a time. And then we look at the long-term gains. So that's why I always say to clients, where would you get the most bang for your buck, right? So what are the things that you could do to, like, of all the things that you want to change, where are you going to notice the difference the most? And then let's start with that one. I have a lot of clients who just, not behavior change, but who have like multiple kind of mental health changes. So like there's a lot of anxiety or depression. And so I'll have lots of clients say like, these are all their goals. Well, what's one at a time that we can do? And so oftentimes I'll have clients say panic attacks, right? If they don't have panic attacks, or if they know how to manage their panic attacks, it makes everything else a little bit easier. And you'll see that some of those changes do, like some of the behaviors will translate naturally to some of the other things that they're doing. And then long-term gains. So again, when we're doing the SMART goal, what are some long-term gains that people would get? More of a motivational strategy, but again, really helpful for people to talk through as well. Just a couple more intrinsic motivating factors. So Mara said putting DT health recommendation from doctor, found he had more time to spend with kids since he wasn't going out for cigarettes anymore, which helped him stay motivated. And then I work today with a recovering alcoholic patient who's also getting care for bipolar disease, currently using nicotine inhaler during the day for NRT. Cool, awesome. So a couple challenges, and I've kind of already talked about some of these, but challenges that might come up is the clients don't want to prioritize goals. So clients just want to do everything, or they don't want to engage in goal setting. So I've already talked about this a little bit. So I find that those strategies are often really helpful, and just having that conversation with the client about kind of, you know, you've done this behavior for this many times, for this many years, what it, you know, what's a couple extra days? Like, let's play out the worst case scenario. And again, client doesn't want to engage in goal setting. I like to educate clients. Like, I like to share. I'm not going to pull it like a research article or a journal article, but oftentimes I'll just share with clients, and I'll say to them, like, you know, the power, like, there's research has shown that when you know, actually spend the time to do this goal setting, you know, you have this dedicated time, you're seeing me for an hour, let's write them down, because it will become easier, and it allows us to see when things are changing. And I'll say, you know, a year from now, when you've changed so much and you can't even imagine how far you've come, you're going to look back at some of these goals that we wrote down today, and you're going to see to yourself, like, wow, look how far I've come. So I'm like, it's just an extra way for you to see how far you've come in your lifestyle change. Client returns struggling from goals and motivation has decreased. And that's a big thing with goals, is that we often have clients who, they don't meet their goals. Like, how many times have we made goals that we haven't met, right? It's human nature. It happens. Sorry, I'm talking too much. But oftentimes with clients, is I start from the get-go. Like, with clients, I start from day one talking about how you are going to slip. You are going to have weeks where XYZ is not going to work out for you, or whatever your goal is, you're not going to meet it, or you're going to feel like you failed, and that's okay. The most important thing, and I always say to people, I don't consider anything a failure. The only time I consider it a failure is if you don't come back to me, and you don't, like, come back to me and we talk about it. Because anytime there's a slip, anytime there's a challenge, it's a learning opportunity, and what's going to happen is you're going to come out stronger from that. And then I always joke with clients, and I'll say to them, like, if you come back and you tell me that you've never slipped, that you've never relapsed, that you never had a challenge, I'm going to call you a liar, because it's true. Every single person has gone through that. And so by really setting the stage that it's okay to come back and you haven't met your goal, and it's an opportunity for learning, that I find clients will then, you know, the motivation does decrease, but then I just say this tells us that we have to change our goal a little bit, that it's just time to tweak our goal a little bit. And when clients struggle with that, it's another solution-focused technique, but oftentimes I'll have clients say, okay, if your son, friend, daughter, wife, partner, whatever, came to you and they were feeling this way, what would you tell them to do? If your good friend was coming to you and they had the same situation, how would you help them? What would you say to them in that situation? Because so often I find clients, they have, and just human nature, not even clients, but oftentimes we can't see for ourselves what we can see for other people. So being able to support clients and being able to pull that out from clients, again, it's that buy-in, it's that solution focus. We know that clients know what's going to work for them. We just have to pull it out. Each week the client changes their goal priority. This happens quite often. That's why I find construction paper brainstorming is really helpful, because we just pull it out. We say, we worked on this, let's talk about this again. And then I would say people like, give me another week, let's try this for another week. And then if we really want to change the priority, but like, look how far you've come already, and how do we move forward from that? Like, you don't want to lose some of this work that you've already done so far. And clients seem to come a little bit more on board with that. I already talked about how clients can feel this is a waste of time. And then the extrinsic goal factor is taking priority over intrinsic goal factor. So it's interesting, because we know research has shown that there's a slight advantage over intrinsic. My belief, and lots of belief that we see, is that honestly, if anything is helping the clients change their behavior, let's change the behavior, right? So if clients are really not interested in talking about an intrinsic goal factor, if clients aren't interested in, if they're really, really focused on some extrinsic factor, but it's still motivating them and they're still moving forward, go with it for the time being. Eventually we'll be able to pull out intrinsic, but if not, they're still changing the behaviors, they're still meeting their goals. And so I said, if there's anything else you've encountered, by all means, type it in the box, and I'm just going to read some more stuff in this box that we have here. So Brittany wrote, a challenge for me is that the majority of my clients are extrinsically motivated. So she works on an inpatient mental health unit. Clients do not have grounds access without staff, and the entire grounds is a smoke-free facility. People are forced to give up smoking when they're admitted to hospital. Yeah, that's a really, really tough one. And that's why a lot of those MI strategies are really helpful, especially for smoking. And some of the behavior changes that people can make. So when they are really craving, and if they are struggling, what are some things that you can do in the meantime? What if a client doesn't believe any goal setting needs to happen, but believes they are the victim and believes, oh no, I just lost it, hold on. This chat box has a mind of its own. What if a client does not believe any goal setting needs to happen, believes they're the victim, and believes change needs to happen for other individuals in his or her environment instead? Abla, we see this a lot. Because I'm just mindful of the time, but I'll send it out. In solution focus, we call these people, they're called the complainant. So oftentimes clients will come in to therapy or come in for any change, and they can identify everyone else is the problem, not them. And really the big thing with that is we want to highlight what we say to clients, you can't change other people. I wish I could. Like, I wish I could bring your partner, friend, whatever, into the office and have them work through this. But unfortunately, it's just us. So how can we change how you react to that person? Or how have you been coping despite everything that the person's been doing, or despite everything that's going on with that person? If you want, I'll send it to you. I don't know if anyone else is interested in it, so I can send it out to everyone. But if not, Abla, feel free to shoot me an email. Teach will share my email with everyone. And I can send you a lot of literature on kind of complainants, what we call them. Pamela said, thank you, Pamela. And how could we address clients who really want to change but have unsupportive partners? Yeah, that's a really tough one as well. It's working with them despite kind of what's going on with partners. So I often find clients who want to quit smoking and their partner's still smoking in the house. We come up with, that's really just kind of doing barrier mapping. So, looking at all the potential barriers that can change. And then really I find, and it depends kind of within their home, but if they have a phone or something, write down kind of what their motivating factors are. So when they're feeling really, really like they're struggling because of whatever the partner's doing in the home, then oftentimes I'll say, go back to why you're here. Go back to why you're making that change. And And, that sometimes can help. But again, any old barrier. So if someone, if they're living with someone who smokes in the home, what can you do when your partner lights up at home? What are things that you can do instead? It's really empowering. And that's what I find with behavior change. I pull on a lot of solution focus because it is so empowering for clients to know what they've already been doing. And so if you guys want, I'm happy to send some more stuff out on some different strategies for clients with solution focus because I find it's really, really helpful. But yeah, I find it's just what are things that they could do. And then I always do something called a coping question. So, how have you coped up until this point with your partner, not being supportive? Or what are things that you have done before despite your partner not being supportive? So again, already pulling on that self-efficacy and pulling on those clients, what things they've already been able to do up until this point. But yeah, I'm happy to send that stuff out. Thanks, Marilyn. Catherine. Catherine encourages clients to experiment with steps they might want to try, then have the client tell me about their experience at our next session. So framing the step as an experiment can be less anxiety producing. I love that. And I find that in life too. Whenever there's any type of change, I always frame it as like a pilot. And anyone, like even at work, everyone's okay with a pilot. Serena sees clients after they've been in hospital and they don't want to quit after being smoke-free. They see how they're able to make it through the visit without smoking, motivates them to stay smoke-free. Yeah, that's also too, I find, incarcerated clients as well. Claire, yay, thank you. And Leslie wants more strategies. So yeah, for sure, I'll send out some solution-focused strategies. And yeah, Brittany's seen it with clients as well. Thank you, everyone. So I have a couple more minutes, but if there's not questions, thank you everyone for spending your lunch hour with me. And yeah, feel free. I'll have Teach share my email, and give me a couple days, and I'll pull some like papers and solution focus info, and I'll share that with everyone. I just need a couple minutes to do it. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Stephanie. And hi, everybody. You're probably wondering, where'd Shalisa go? She had to run to a training, so I'm here just to kind of wrap up. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much, Stephanie, for being our facilitator today. You're super dynamic and provided so many great, really applicable experiences and your clinical experiences that I think are really helpful to really put this into context. So hopefully everybody found that helpful. You're welcome. And I just want to let those of you know who, if you're a STOP practitioner, there is a STOP teleconference at 1 o'clock today. So make sure that you dial in to that teleconference number. And then I also just want to go through a couple of things. So please remember that a link to the evaluation and the post-learning assessment will be sent by email by this afternoon, and you will have 1 week to complete the assessment in order to receive your letter of completion. And if you participated as a group, make sure to email us at teach@camh.ca by 2 o'clock p.m. today so we can make sure that you get credit for attending. Our next rounds webinar is on oral health. It's exactly 1 month from today, and our presenters will be Dr. Debbie Saunders and Tanya Strykic, so registration for that will be opening soon. And again, just a reminder that we record all of our webinars, so if you want to share this with anybody or review it again, it'll be available on our website soon. So I think that's it. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and thanks again, Stephanie. You were awesome.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.